What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today, are you searching for an urchin who can give you ideals? This is Urchin, and yes, I just quoted Hamilton. So, right away, you know exactly what kind of critic you're getting, whether or not you should continue to watch, like and subscribe, all those kind of things, because I'm the kind of guy that when I hear urchin, I'm like, where have I heard urchin before? Oh, in the Hamilton song lyrics. So that's where I went with that. But this is a 2025 Cannes selection, which is the directorial debut of Harris Dickinson, who has done some really great work with his career in terms of being a young actor and picking sort of the right roles and getting uh, into, I would say, I like to use the term chasing Oscar category. He picks a lot of prestige projects and works with the right directors. He's not doing a lot of like silly teen Netflix comedies or anything like that. He's getting himself into roles like we last saw him in Baby Girl, right? But he's also been in the Best Picture nominee Triangle of Sadness and the potential nominee that just didn't happen, Blitz, uh, which really, really wanted to be an Oscar nominee that year. So he's worked with a lot of top talent over the course of his career. So how is that going to focus his direction? I will say Urchin does not have audio description. I did get an advanced screener of it that ended up not being so advanced, but here we are, because this is currently a theatrical release. I'll take it, whatever. Um, and it stars Frank Delane, and we need to have a word. So if you're part of the YouTube or film critic community, whatever we want to call it, I don't know, influencers. I don't know that anybody's. Am I influencing at 524 subscribers? Am I? Who am I influencing? um, so I y'all know that Frank Delane, that this isn't his first role, right? Because I've seen some reviews, read some reviews that are like, "Oh, this is a great find. This is a great discovery." He's been acting longer than Harris Dickinson has. Just as a hot take, just on that, he's been acting for like at least 20 years of his life, and on camera, by the way. Um, so mayhaps we could stop referring to him as a bright new talent. I know Frank Delane from Fear the Walking Dead, notably, where he played Nick for multiple seasons. Was sort of the lead of that show. Uh, depending on depending on who you viewed as the lead, we sort of did start with his family as being the core. I guess core four. Or, it was an extended family. So as they kind of whittled away, he ended up sort of getting a little bit more of a lead position as people died off, because it's a Walking Dead show. But he does not survive the entire series. Sorry for that spoiler alert, but basically, as soon as they could get Morgan on that show, it became a completely different thing. So, uh, yeah. So I do know who Frank Delane is, and he's been in other things that I've seen, including Renegade Nell. Um, Obviously, he was in Harry Potter. He played Tom Riddle in Harry Potter. So you've seen Frank Delane before. He is, granted, not as big and immediate recognizable of a star as Harris Dickinson is, who's sort of more of the moment because of the films that he's been doing, but he also didn't just pop in off the street, which would be kind of ironic since his character in this is sort of off the street. So this won some awards at Cannes because it's a directorial debut for Harris Dickinson, and he's, you know, young, and this is very promising work for anybody, not just an actor turning director, but really for anybody, because I thought of so many other films while I was watching this that he had clearly been influenced by sort of recently. This film's coming for BAFTAs. This is it's going to be too small of a film to make a serious impact at the Academy Awards. It comes from a distributor that I don't think has the kind of weight behind it to get. I don't even know where we would get it in at. It would be tough because it's basically like actor, director, screenplay, maybe cinematography. I think it's more of a BAFTA play where they focus a little bit more on British film and they're a little bit more inclined to try to nominate British films. So when they have because they do a best picture, but they also do a top 10 British films of the year, I think this is going to be on that list. This is a top 10. I would predict this right now for a BAFTA. Um, and Delane plays a guy that we meet begging on the street, who has an encounter with a man who offers to buy him food. That does not go well, which leads to Delane being arrested and having to spend some time in jail. Afterwards, he's released, and then he's trying to find a job, and he ends up working at a restaurant, sort of back in the kitchen. He gets this job. So he's trying to put his life back together, but he's clearly still dealing with a lot of issues. He's an addict, and he has to roll with that. And his housing is sort of up in the air, which becomes a little bit more of a frenetic problem for him towards the end of the film, as he isn't quite sure where he's going to stay and could very well become unhoused again. And is trying not to completely blow up his life, but he's walking a fine line between that and also he feels like he's trying to cling desperately on to the fringe of society, and he might fall back into the gutter once more. It's a strong performance from Frank Delane, so I completely understand why everybody is praising him. And for Dickinson, it feels like a lot of things that I've seen recently, including Scrapper, which came to my mind because it's sort of focused on the denizens of London, and in that regard, much the same way that Harris takes a look at the same sort of population of people that you would, I don't know, cross to the other side of the street to try to walk around. And Bird, Andrea Arnold's Bird from last year. There's a little bit of that, but with some dialed down magical realism. And it's not quite on the level of Arnold's Bird in terms of that. And it doesn't have such a bizarre character as Bird in it. But it's got vibes. And it even reminded me of Mike Leigh's Hard Truths last year, because that was a film that asked you to love a performance from an actress who was arguably giving you an unlikable character. Now, Marianne Jean-Baptiste last year was my best actress pick. I voted for her as wherever I could for Hard Truths. I loved Hard Truths. I thought she was phenomenal in it. And that was an incredible performance. So, but it was much more dialogue driven. Delane's performance here is much more of a muted, also like a physical performance, not so much a talkative performance. It's not dialogue driven, but Baptiste was really just getting in there, and she had some brutal things to say. So, like I said, there's shades of all of these films, and I was reminded of all of them, and even to some extent, Ken Loach's The Old Oak, which I did get to see. I think these films are all sort of in and around Urchin, and Dickinson likely is inspired by the directors that he's worked with before. I know he was in a film called Beach Rats, and I've seen a lot of people mention that this feels like that. I haven't seen that, so I can't speak to that. But if you have seen Beach Rats and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, this feels like that. A lot of people think that. So I struggle with ultimately still being the blind film critic here, and Urchin does not have audio description. I knew it didn't have audio description, but I asked for the screener anyway. They didn't approach me, I asked them. So I'm being a little bit more kind here because I approached them for a screener. But at the same time, I am very much, and this is consistent for me, you can go back through like all of my reviews. I'm somebody who enjoys a good performance. Like, it actually buoys a film. If I can sit there and rewatch a film that somebody might be like, well, that's not a great film. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Then it's a great performance. Do you see what that actor is doing over there? I love great actors. I love great performances. I love to be blown away by, because let's face it, a lot of these comedies, they're like anchored by one great actor doing a performance. The film itself isn't that great, but you come there for the actor. So why wouldn't you do the same thing for drama? Like, why wouldn't we show up because the drama film is like, okay, but the performance is like, oh my God, you know? Like, why can't we do that as well? Why can't we be affected by somebody's work? And thinking about what Delane was doing on Fear the Walking Dead and what he does here, that's a dramatic transformation. So, he's, he certainly played Nick in a very specific way, as an addict also, but also like American teenager, right? Now he's British, slightly older, slightly wiser, so shades of sort of the same type of thing. I hope Frank doesn't just keep getting cast as addicts for the rest of his life. People just look at him and they're like, you know what, you make a great addict. So I don't know what that says about him. Probably starts getting into his brain a little bit. But he does. He plays a great role here. And I don't know that this is going to make it into my top 5, top 10. I don't know what this year looks like. There's a whole bunch of films I still have to see. But Frank Delane's performance is one of the best of the year. And it's really hard to look at this and see what Dickinson has done and crafted. And he's forced us to look at a character that normally we wouldn't look at otherwise. And as far as feature debut, which is also a category that I end up voting for at some point, yeah, I would end up voting for Harris Dickinson for this. So like, there are reasons and things that I'm actively thinking about for Urchin, even though it didn't meet my accessibility needs, because of largely this performance. I think Frank Delane does a really good job. So I'm not going to try to sing the high heavens on this one and give it like a 10 out of 10, because accessibility does matter. And I would love for this distributor, which is sort of like a newer distributor, to start using audio description. But I've had conversations with more established studios in this that don't use audio description, and they blow it off and don't put audio description, or they somehow conceptually don't know what audio description is or understand it, even though they've been around for years. So I'm trying not to name drop people, but I've had some really interesting conversations that lead me to believe that this distributor that I didn't know existed until they picked up this movie might want to give them a break and just put this on their radar and be like, you know what, there's a thing, it's called audio description. Think about putting it on your films if you're going to continue to release films in wherever, actually, not just it's not an American right, it's just sort of it's kind of like common human decency. Even if you release films in the UK, I still want UK audiences to have access to it. I hope that there's some blind guy over in the UK that's I can't advocate for every country. It's exhausting. I have as many meetings as I can. For the reach that you see on my channel, I have more meetings that you don't know about. It's amazing. I'm more influential than the 524 might suggest. So go ahead and click subscribe. But this one definitely needed it. There are shots where he's clearly capturing Delane on the street, and I did check out some reviews to get sort of an idea of what Harris Dickinson's camera style was. Yeah, he kind of missed that. So yeah, audio description would make a difference here. But interestingly, there was one film that that this reminded me of, which was the only film that I've ever seen without audio description, and then had an idea of where my grade went, and then watched it with audio description, and I actually was like, oh no, never mind, and it went down. So it didn't, otherwise it almost always increases. So I would love to see this with audio description at some point. If that ever happens, probably won't. But for right now, with Urchin as is, it's riding high on the Frank Delane performance, and I just can't thumbs down a movie that I may end up voting for in best of, especially if we're going to consider Frank Delane for best newcomer. Best breakthrough performance. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna vote for him for, but I thought he did a fantastic job here. He's got some great scenes that carry, with or without audio description, that are just in his where he feels like he's itching to like crawl out of his skin, and I kind of remember that with Nick on Fear the Walking Dead, and he's bringing a lot of that same style here. So it's not a high grade, but it's a fresh, and I'm going to go with a 6.6 out of 10. So riding off of a lot of goodwill. It's also got an interesting score to it. And sometimes I thought the score was a bit much, but also those were in the scenes where I didn't have dialogue, so I didn't know what it was complimenting. There were just times where I thought it was aggressive, and but I didn't also know what it was complimenting. So it's really hard to grade that. But it is an interesting score in and of itself. So if you have a chance to see Urchin and you're not blind, you should do it. If you are blind, find a way to see this without having to pay for it. That's how I think we should dabble in lack of audio description is, and no, that doesn't mean piracy. That means wait until it's on a streaming service that you already pay for. And then that way you don't have to feel guilty about paying directly for something that doesn't have audio description. And then you can check it out for yourself and be like, oh, I heard some stuff about this kid's performance. Let's see what he's got. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.